Poor people governor with the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God. I'm responsible for what I say, not what you interpret. Today we have the honor of having in studio with us the Honorable Amanza Walton-Desir, Shadow Minister of Foreign Affairs. Welcome, Miss Amanza. How are you today?
Hey, Calvin. Good afternoon. I am well. I'm well. Thank you for having me on your show today.
Great, great. You're looking much younger than I am.
Good genes and a good heart.
All right. Um, MP, there's so much going on in Guyana that sometimes we
Oh,
don't know where to start and we don't ever catch a break. Like it's
I
from one
know.
thing to the next.
I
And
know.
this country is so beautiful, but yet it seems like we just cannot get it right. I don't
Mm.
know. Um, I want to take you back to the president visit to parliament and this that sent the whole country in a frenzy with the.
Hey, guys, let's know if you're hearing us. We seem to be having some technical difficulties, but just in the comment section, give us a thumbs up if you could hear us and if we're coming to you clearly. Great. Thank you so much. I see Carmen is saying, Jacqueline is saying they're hearing us loud and clear. And let me know if you're seeing the host because I can't see the host from where I am. So just let us know in the comment section if you're seeing Kelvin as well. Good afternoon, Marilyn. How are you? I can see Rajendra says they're hearing us loud and clear. And Rosamund is saying that we can't hear the host. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to um, get out of StreamYard for a second and we're going to come right back in. So whilst we're doing that, make sure that you share the live stream so that you can get valid and up to date information. So we're going to exit and then we're just going to sign back on, and we'll be with you for a really informative and what I hope will be an action packed hour on this Friday afternoon. So we'll be back in a minute, guys.
Okay, we're back.
We're back.
All right. All right. A little hiccup never do no harm.
That's how you know it's gonna be good.
So- sorry, my viewers, for that, but we're rocking and rolling as usual. My first question I had asked you was the cash grant and the president visit to parliament. I don't know if you had heard before, or should I repeat?
No, well, no, I didn't hear the question. You sort of went off
Okay.
just as you were asking it.
Um, we can you hear me?
Loud and clear. Well, it looks, guys, like we're gonna have a very interesting afternoon. Um, this is how you know it's gonna be a good program when the hiccups start happening. Calvin, are you back? I was playing host until you returned.
I'm struggling to hear.
Well, I can hear you loud and clear, and the viewers are saying that they're hearing us loud and clear. All right, family, hold strain. We're gonna be back. We're gonna be back.
I'm back. Can you hear me now? And see
I
me?
I am hearing you loud and clear all the time. I was
Oh,
playing host until you got back. So
okay. I- I'm back. Sorry about that once again. My first question to you, MP, is
Mhm,
the cash grant and the president visit to parliament. And
mhm.
he came, he said that 200,000 a household. Then the vice president said, he said it's retroactive. The vice president says 5 months. Then we went from that to 100,000 individual over 18. And then the vice president came and added to it, saying the diaspora, and then it's some up, and there's a confusion from starting to ending. As well as the opposition have said that if it's done in a structured manner, they would support the grant, even though it's a small amount, which is 100,000. What are your views on starting to ending with this cash grant saga?
Confusion. and really indicative of a government that has no idea how to run a country. You do not make such impactful announcements without having thought out the mechanism for implementation. In a properly functioning country, what would happen is that if the president has this idea, he has to sit with his technical people. He has to be very clear in his own mind as to the parameters of the disbursement. He has to be clear about how it is going to um, be distributed. He has to be clear about its impact on inflation. He has to be clear about the exacerbation of inequalities. So, what the days after the announcement revealed is that there clearly was not a thought out plan. They just like how he announced that there'll be no bridge tolls, etc. These things are grandiose, but when you look at the implications and the seriousness that is required for its implementation and its equitable implementation, it's very obvious that the PPPC administration is out of its depth. And it's very obvious that what they are attempting to use these cash grants to do is to shore up their waning popularity and to distract the people from all of the corruption and graft and just the complete breakdown of the systems that's happening all around us. That is not to say that we do not support cash grants and any measure that will bring tangible relief to the people of Guyana. And I think we've been at pains to point out that really what is needed is a proper social safety net, well thought out, well implemented, that will see the people of Guyana receiving some meaningful cushion from the skyrocketing cost of living. Kelvin, we don't have 1 million people here, and in some places, 1 million people is a large city run by a city council of 12 persons and of various committees. So in terms of the sheer numbers, we do not have any excuse anymore for the inability to implement programs in a well thought out, well structured manner. But what we're seeing here is that the PPPC has no intention of thinking out anything or structuring anything properly. They believe that the Guyanese people could be bought. They believe that the Guyanese people are clearly for sale, and so we could throw any old thing at them and they'll accept it. And I think the fact that they had to double back, and even in the doubling back, still have not been very clear about the mechanisms, indicate that the people of Guyana have been very loud and clear in their rejection of the nonsense of not well thought out policies.
Indeed, a government that is scattered and the president says one thing and the vice president come and say something else and confuse the nation. And how can a nation run under this kind of government that changes his mouth overnight?
It can't. It certainly can't. And Guyanese deserve, and I keep using these words, Guyanese deserve sober, temperate leadership. We need leadership that understands the juncture that we're at and that are willing to literally roll their sleeves up and get the work done and do it in the right way. Look, Kelvin, we are going the way of nations that have gone before us. And we are not learning from their pitfalls. Yes, we have this sudden oil wealth, and we haven't learned from Trinidad. We haven't learned from Nigeria. The government has gone on a spending spree. It is almost as if they are drunk on the excesses of the liquidity that is in the system. And whilst it feels good now, it is the future that we continue to jeopardize. And so my appeal to the people of Guyana is to begin to demand more of us as leaders, to begin to demand more for this country, because the country will only go the way we allow it to. We as politicians will only go as far as you allow us to go. And I'm minded that I wear the cap now of a politician, but for me, it is more about Guyana above politics now, because we have a unique opportunity for this nation, and my pain is that we may be squandering it.
I am, for me and my personal opinion on this cash grant, as 100,000, which is not enough in my view. I honestly believe that the way in which it is done, it's not correct, and it's not pleasing for the ordinary man. Why I say that? This 100,000 is equivalent to every person over 18, including the president of Guyana, which is it's bad because there are persons that are really catching themselves, or I don't want to use the word, but there are persons that are really below the poverty line and could do with some decent money. And I feel if we got judges, police officers, we got politicians, we got all kind of people was entitled to this 100,000, which in my view, this 100,000 could have done better if it was structured in such a way that it meet the persons who really and truly need it.
No,
Because
no, go ahead.
bear in mind, all politicians from both sides, all nurses, doctors, even though they may need a break and a little help too, let's work on the persons who really and truly need it and help to take them out of poverty. Structure in such a way that every all across the board would feel satisfied. But this kind of wild operation, I'm not pleased with. I'm not.
I prefer the use of the word lazy. It's a lazy approach to government, because I think during the AP and UAFC, particularly when we were dealing with the issue of um, raises and increases in salary, we were able to do it in a staggered manner so that the lion's share got to the people who needed it the most. But that takes work. That takes a commitment to sitting down and really being earnest about helping the neediest of the needy in our country. It takes work, and the PPPC is not prepared to do the hard work that it will take to build this nation. If they were, then we would have seen a different approach. If they were interested in doing the hard work, by now we would have seen proper uh, social safety and security nets being implemented. Things like free transportation, things like free transportation for seniors and for school children. That a small country like, for example, Barbados has, over a certain age, you don't pay for public transportation. And, I see people asking, well, how do you know who needs and who doesn't need it? That is why you do needs assessments. That is why you do a needs assessment. That is why you have to be very up to date and current on your census data, because that will give you an
Correct.
idea of where people are and what they really need, and the income brackets that they fall in and how many people fall in that um, income bracket. So this is why the gathering of data is important, because we have to make data driven decisions. So the need is great for a well thought out strategy. Yes, money in hand is always very good. But what we need as well is a far more structured approach to bringing longer term relief to our citizens. Because 500 US dollars in the shop finishes like that, right? And I was making the point that when this money hits the economy, prices go up. When that money is already spent, the prices don't go back down. So you are stuck with your same salary
And high economy.
and higher prices. So
Yes.
we have to take a holistic look at this thing, and um, we have to be brave enough as a nation, and the government has to demonstrate bravery enough to sit down and do the hard work to bring meaningful relief to our people.
Conversations with Poor People Governor, you're tuned to Conversations with the Poor People Governor and Amanza Walton-Desir, Member of Parliament. Uh, MP, I know you wear a hat of an attorney as well. And I want to take you straight into the Guyana police force, or the Guyana, some would say, political force. Um, it's like we're not getting a break. It's from one thing to the next. When it comes to the police force, where do I start? If we start from the top, corruption, name calling, accuse, we come right down the ladder, it's the same thing. How can we as a nation correct the wrongs of the police force? How can we move forward? How the young people wants to join the police force with all the accusations that are threats at the police department? How can we? Can you speak to our people? Let us get an understanding of where we at and where we going.
Yeah. Look,
If
I think
something is not done,
it may be, I think it was probably 2 weeks ago or sometime, I said very publicly that there is need for a full and thorough investigation into the Guyana police force by international bodies. And not only an investigation, but they must come up with a raft of recommendations for us to move this country forward. Kelvin, I think it is important that we understand, because what you have in our country are people who will excuse away anything that goes wrong under the PPP, even if they have to come and personally attack you, anything to throw a red herring to detract from the issue. I want to make this point that the breakdown of the Guyana police force is not just a smear on the face of the PPP, it is a smear on Guyana's face. And I think that is what is important, that we understand that any person who claims to love this country must be embarrassed by what is happening with the Guyana police force. So I think that is the first point that we have to make. The second point that we have to make is that this goes beyond the commissioner of police. It goes beyond any particular incidents of corruption. It goes to a far more troubling thing, which is the acceptance of corruption as a way of life in Guyana. And that is troubling, because if it is anybody that should be the exception, you would expect that it would be the police force. The other issue is that it has a direct impact on foreign direct investment. So this is not about petty political points gaining. This is about the fact that this government does not seem to understand that this has direct implications for the comfort foreigners feel investing in Guyana. Because when you do political and other risk assessments when you are coming into a country, the factor of law and order is paramount there. And a sound, capable police force capable of maintaining law and order is paramount. Now, with the police force as compromised as it is, law and order is compromised. Our public safety is compromised. Even those people who are defending the nonsense do not seem to understand that their and their family's safety is also compromised. So this is bigger than politics. This goes to the heart of our stability as a nation. And I hope that our people understand that, and that they call for this government to be held to account for this nonsense that they have allowed to be perpetuated under their watch.
indeed, the opposition leader and the party that you were part of had constantly said publicly that there would be no support for the commissioner of police. And it appears now that that's the rightful call to make, because in all of this, the commissioner of police have not yet made a statement or a press conference to defend or deny. How can we be safe in a country with all these accusations pointed at the police force and the top cop refuse to comment? So we should just be going day by day, knowing whether it's true or false, because he refused to comment. and still seeking appointment for a commissioner of police. How incompetent is this government?
Well, look, I truly believe that what we're seeing playing out here is a government that is so compromised that it has allowed itself to become so compromised that it is now being held hostage. This is the only explanation as to why nothing is happening in that regard. Clearly, somebody is being held hostage someplace, because I do not understand how you will be forging ahead with attempting to confirm a commissioner that has a force so embroiled in controversy. Was it he has a gun to your head or something? That's a fair question to ask, right? Because look, man, Jagdeo and his cabal, they have to know that it makes us look so pathetic.
It does.
And I know that the people of Guyana are not pathetic. And that is what bothers me, that this government, they don't care, Kelvin. They do not care how the people of Guyana look. They don't care how anything looks. As long as they have their way, as long as their friends, family, and favorites continue to be enriched from the contracts, they believe that they could say to the people of Guyana that day is night and night is day, and we must believe them.
Indeed. MP, on a lighter note, let's just, catch we breath, because it's from one thing to the next. And I hope
It's a
in
lot.
your
It's a lot.
department, I hope it's not in your department as well. I know you shadow Minister for Foreign Affairs. Can you tell us
Uh-huh.
what is happening in Foreign Affairs? What is the latest developments, or, how is Foreign Affairs doing? Are we
Well,
good
look.
there?
Well, look. No, we're not good. We're not good anywhere. Um, my concern continues to be the transactional nature of our foreign affairs. It continues to be the fact that Todd appears out of his depth, and that the government does not have a guiding national interest. It appears as though it's what Jagdeo on one day, or Irfan wakes up another day and feels like doing that is what we do. And a nation certainly cannot be run in that manner. I'm deeply concerned that we do not have a handle on this migration issue. It is mind-boggling for me to see a government that refuses, and it is now to the point of refusal. This is not a point of incompetence anymore. There's a point in which, Kelvin, it moves from incompetence, that you can't do it because you don't know how to, and then it moves to you are unwilling to do it. And in my own view, this is where this government is. Because since anybody who has followed me since I started speaking in the National Assembly would recognize that from year one, I flagged the need for a migration policy, for a sound immigration regime, one that preserves the advantage for Guyanese, because our country is now opening up. Everybody is running here. And so, what are the benefits or the advantages that are carved out for me as a Guyanese citizen that was born here, that lived here, that grew up here, that contributed to the development of this nation? And so, in the absence of a sound, thought out policy, you have the kind of confusion that you're seeing. I have also been very clear that we are in the crosshairs of every geopolitical issue that you could think about happening in the world right now. We are front and center in the crosshairs. And so we need to have a diplomatic corps and a cadre of diplomats who understand what the national interest is and who are able to act in that regard. Look, and I intend to take it up with the Ministry of Home Affairs. I noticed Says Narayan Singh, commenting yesterday by way of letter in the Stabrook News about Vishnu Prasad's fitness to be the CEO of GCOM. Now, I hope that it is not Says Narayan Singh, the disgraced former CEO of Gaisuko, that failed to turn Gaisuko around, and who, irrespective of his failure, was appointed as an ambassador to Belgium and permanent representatives to all kinds of things and places. I hope it's not the same, says Narayan Singh,
I hope so.
commenting on partisan political matters, because he must understand that as a diplomat, that defies diplomatic decorum. As a diplomat, you are out there not to represent the PPP government. You are a representative of the people of Guyana. And so I hope it's not the same, says Narayan Singh, that is the ambassador, and that is writing in the newspaper and tarnishing the names of current employees of GCOM. Because I will not go into the details of why neutrality of a diplomat who is deployed on behalf of the country is extremely important. So there is that. And then, of course, we have the situation with the Venezuelan migrants and this government's refusal to foster a whole of community approach to dealing with this issue. This government wants to precipitate strife with Venezuelan migrants, between migrants and Guyanese. I am convinced that they want to precipitate strife because they want to be able to get up and say that people in the opposition who are talking about this, they're xenophobic, etc. This is why they are so deliberately divisive in their approach. I want to use the example of Linden and what has happened there. Are you from Linden? I'm from Linden.
Talk to us.
And so we understand what the injection of 600 to 800 people one time in our community could do, the way it could overburden our school system, the way it could overburden our healthcare system, the hospitals and schools, our ability for sanitation services, the strain that they will place on that. Now, instead of doing the right thing, this PPPC government, and going into Linden and engaging the authorities there, Hugh Todd runs up there with his usual bravado and his just disregard for anything proper and decent, and goes to engage the migrants without informing and incorporating the municipal and judicial authorities in his outreach, and then expects that Sharma Solomon mustn't say anything, and expects that Darren Adams must not say anything, and then tries to paint them as xenophobic when they do speak. When it is the role of government, if they are serious in the first place, to understand that you are dealing with a delicate situation. You are dealing with the situation of not only migrants, but you're dealing with a peculiar situation here, Governor, and that is because the Haitians, for example, don't feel that 2/3 of Guyana belongs to them.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
So that is the nuance that I think is missed when we deal with the migration issue. And I see you talking about integration, and I keep asking him, what do you mean by integration? Because there are degrees to integration, including political integration. And given the circumstances of the case, do you believe that political integration is the wisest choice right now? Because I could very well see a situation where people are deliberately sent here to lie as sleeper agents, the insertion of a fifth column into our country, and we integrate people into a political system, and then suddenly we don't want to be ruled by Guyana anymore. We want to be ruled by a certain other country. And so these are things that have actually happened in real life. But we have a government that is pig-headed and a government that is unable to really demonstrate a commitment to the people of Guyana.
MP, I really thought we would catch a break on foreign affairs, but it seems as though there's no break to catch.
No,
You
I'm
you
sorry.
you've been championing the call in Parliament, out of Parliament, when it comes to the Venezuela border issue, when it comes to the migration issue, all to no avail, all fall on deaf ear. I don't know if it's, well, it's not incompetent. You said it's blunt refusal. It's just not incompetent at this stage.
No,
I
it's
don't.
not incompetent, because the final point I want to make on foreign affairs is that I have proposed in the Foreign Relations Sectoral Committee. Parliament has a committee that is vested with reviewing the foreign relations sector. I have said, look, I'm a member of that community. I have said to my colleagues in that community, and we on the opposition side are ready to sit down and do the work. Let us, as a foreign relations sectoral committee, come up with a white paper, as it were, on immigration, on migration, on broad policy statements that we will then have our technical people flesh out, so that at a bare minimum, we could have a proper immigration, migration, whatever you want to call it, infrastructure that allows people to come here, that allows them to work, that allows them to pay taxes and to build a life, but one that is unapologetically preserving the advantage for the Guyanese citizen.
Hmm. Foreign Affairs Minister, Shadow Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ms. Amanza Walton-Desir. Um, Corruption in general. We dealt with the police force, but it seems as though every ministry in Guyana is under corruption. I noticed you had to take a deep breath when we talk about corruption, because it's funny that we live in a country where corruption is acceptable to the government. The government finds people that deals with corruption and move them from one position and put them in the next.
You know
Talk,
when you
talk to
you
us.
know you know when I realized that we were really really in trouble, when Barrett Jack Dio stood up someplace and said to the people that, we know you're not going to use the money for the business grant, but don't worry, the government is not going to come after you. And people see that as magnanimous. But what Jack Dio was doing was making every person complicit in corruption. Because if you got the money for business grant, open a business.
That's the
Because
purpose of it.
you know that they had these PPP grants in the US and in Canada and so on during COVID. And
Yeah.
you know that people were jailed when they took that money and converted to their own use and then opened the business as they were given to. So when you have a vice president saying to people, okay, deliberately misuse it, don't worry, we're not going to run after you, you have a problem. And I want our people to understand that this thing looks good on the surface, but when you dig up a little under, what he's trying to do is to acclimate the people of Guyana to a culture of corruption and to make us accomplices in the government's corruption. And we have to have the courage to resist that now. And we have to have the courage to say, you know what? We are better, we can do better, and we will be better.
Hmm. The corruption level goes beyond when it comes to ministries, when it comes to the municipalities and the mayor's office, and the victimization. Let's talk a little bit about the victimization.
There's one more point to be made about this corruption though, Kelvin. And I think, we often excuse it away, no tricks, no living, etc. But the point that has to be made is that corruption really robs Guyanese of the quality of life that they are entitled to. I want to give you a simple demonstration using a road, for example. If we are to build a road, you see that Linden Highway? The Linden Highway was built in 66 by B.B. McCormick, a US firm. And it stood the test of time for decades. Decades, you know what it meant? And money did not have to be expended unnecessarily to repair and to maintain. When we build infrastructure and we build it in a substandard manner, we are hurting the people of Guyana, because it means that instead of building a road that will last for five, for 10 years and above, we're building a road that will last for a year. And then we have to find money in the budget next year to patch and redo and dig up back that road. When that same money could have been allocated to, for example, improving healthcare in the village, right? To improving services to the people. And when we do not speak up about these things, the reality is that it's not everybody benefiting when they have to go back and rebuild the road. In fact, citizens are inconvenienced, and the only people benefiting are their friends, family, and favorites. So they're the only people benefiting from substandard infrastructure. Every other Guyanese faces an inconvenience. And so this is why it is important that we have these things rightly in context, to understand how we sometimes, by not speaking up and not expressing our discontent, are complicit in our own subjugation and in our own depression and lack of quality of life that we should be entitled to. Like I said, there's a million of us, less than a million of us here. If the last census is to be believed, I'm hearing the population is actually decreased, and so there's no excuse for us living in this manner, right? But we need a government that cares and that understands what it takes to build a country, and that sometimes a lot of the flamboyance is not what is required, but it is just getting down to the hard work of governing this country. It's not flamboyant. Doesn't look like putting on a silver jacket and moonwalking across the stage. That's not what it looks like. It looks like long hours and getting the work done so that the people of Guyana are better off at the end of the day.
MP Amanza Walton-Desir, discrimination. Recently, I had conversations with Vice Chair Vince Roy Jordan, which he reported in Champaign City. The opposition went in there, and East Indians had supported them overwhelmingly. And just after the visit, the victimization, discrimination began, which led to police involvement and taken to Georgetown to the cybercrime department, etc., etc. Is this discrimination ever going to finish? Are we going to get a hold on discrimination as a people? Are we going to realize as politicians that there's no race assigned to a particular party in Guyana, and persons have the right to choose whichever party they may like or choose to support? What are your take on the discrimination in Guyana?
I tend to speak some very hard truths sometimes that tend to get me into trouble. But I truly believe that if we can't be authentic in what we do as leaders, then we really have no business being in leadership. Um, that will be up to the people of Guyana to decide. Politicians can only weaponize race if we allow them to. Leaders can only weaponize discrimination if we allow them to. And I think that this is important and as a leader, I have no difficulty being held to a particular, expectation. And we have to dig into our deepest recesses as people and ask if this is the country that we really want. It might look like you tell me go victimize somebody and I refuse to do it. It may look like I see something wrong and I take out my smartphone and I record it. But it starts with the people. And I'm deeply aware that there are people who have personal vested interests, that have an interest in this discrimination going on because of the need to feel superior, or the need to some, or have this need to see other person subjugated so that they could feel powerful. We have a lot of that going on in our society. But at the end of the day, I'm saying to our Guyanese people that we have to wake up. And I'm talking about APNU, AFC, PPP. I'm talking to Guyanese people. The world is becoming increasingly globalized. And unless we begin to look up from this fighting one against the other, we will all raise our heads tomorrow and understand that the Guyana that we put our heads down whilst we were fighting and the one that we will raise our heads up to will be completely different. And that we may be very well third and fourth class citizens in our own country. Because whilst we are so busy fighting for some kind of dominance and whatever it is, others are coming. They're occupying our country. They're buying out our lands. And we have leaders who are only too interested in facilitating that. Meanwhile, a little clerk at some village office, because he or she is anointed by somebody close to the government, feels that it's okay to scratch somebody who they know is of a different political affiliation name off of a list to be able to get a grant. We as a people have to look inside of us. The enemy outside cannot win unless there is an enemy within. And we as Guyanese have to start looking at ourselves and saying, hey man, hold on a second. How does my neighbor, who may be a different ethnicity from me, how does him get, how is it that, her getting a cash grant negatively impacting on me to the degree that I would want to scratch her name off the list? It is an introspection that we have to do as a nation. And until we are ready to do that introspection, we are going to always find ourselves in this situation. It's not a popular thing for a politician to say, because there may be people to say, oh, that's not politically astute. But people are tired of politicians. People want leadership now. And leaders have to lead. And we got to lead by being honest first with ourselves and then being honest with our people. The work starts with us. It's an inside job. Nobody else is going to come do it for us. We got to stop looking for the ABCEU to come save us. They're not going to come save us. We have to begin to stand up and demand more from leaders.
We have to demand more from leaders. And in demanding more from leaders, let's look at the high cost of living and how damaging it is for our people. Bora gone past the normal amount, celery. Everything in the market seems to be high. How are our people coping in Guyana with the high cost of living?
Our people are not coping. Our people are not coping. Listen, you go into the shop right now, a slice of pumpkin that would be for a household of 3 or 4 persons is $600 for a slice.
They used to be for a
You
whole
understand?
pumpkin.
They used to be for a whole pumpkin. Bora, this much. $1,000. Celery, $6,000.
Whoa.
$6,000 a pound. Right? So the people are not coping. And what strikes me is the hypocrisy of Irfan Ali. Irfan Ali is in the Caribbean talking about food security. And his own people at home are food insecure. Not by the opposition's metrics, by objective reports from various international organizations. But he's traipsing around the Caribbean telling people about Caribbean food security. How about Guyana food security first, Irfan? How about making a concerted effort instead of discriminating against farmers in Barnwell North because they're from that area and they look a certain way? How about instead of discriminating against them, bringing each and every one of them onto the grid by offering them the extension services, by offering them the kind of support that they require? But they do not understand that discrimination has a cost attached to it. So when you chop up people suckers in Wales because they were given lands under the APNU and you burn the bridges to their farms, you are affecting the food supply and you are saddling the people of Guyana with high costs for basic food items. So the people of Guyana are not coping, and it is a problem that it transcends ethnicity, it transcends political affiliation. Everybody, save and except those friends, family, and favorites, are catching their tail, as we say it in Guyana.
You're catching your tail indeed. Um, Wages and salary. In my view, if the wages and salaries are equitable across the board, if it's well, if the first the threshold to be something substantial that would cushion the blow of the high cost of living. Um, what are your views on wages and salaries in Guyana?
We continue to be plagued by low wages. Imagine with all this oil money, our teachers are still the lowliest paid teachers just in front of Haiti. And I want people to understand that. So this is not something that we are making up or just speaking off the top of our head. And even with the projected increases that the government has announced, they will still be second only to Haiti at the bottom. It means that Grenada, whose major export is nutmeg, is paying their teachers better than us, who got billions and billions of dollars in the Natural Resource Fund.
From nutmeg.
Make that make sense, Kelvin. It makes no sense. But what you have is a government that has never been interested in managing the economy for the people. Because if they were, look, I think it was 3 years ago, at one of my budget speeches, I made the point that if we adjust our expenditure on on infrastructure projects, these massive roads and things and so on that they're building, because infrastructure is important, right? But well thought out, properly implemented infrastructure is what is good. And that is what we don't have here. So you have wastage, Kelvin, which means that for every dollar we spend on infrastructure, 47 cents is wasted. Right?
Which is terrible.
Or 40, but it might be 47. No, I think it was 41, but it could be 47 now because we lack the capacity to implement these projects. Now, why do we lack capacity? We lack capacity because the government has decided that they're going to create a big program like this. And we only have this much capacity to implement and execute it. Instead of adjusting the program to a size that the capacity of the country can handle, they prefer to waste money. And in wasting the money, they're throwing good money after bad, because that is the only way they know how to enrich themselves. You see, infrastructure is the quickest means for them to effect this wealth transfer that they want to effect. So this is why we have to build a bridge over the Berbice River when the one there is only 16 years old. This is why we built a gas to shore project over the river, and the island is now sinking, but you're not going to hear about it. You're not going to hear about it. So they have to do a phase 2 of the gas to shore. I want our people to understand what is happening with our country and understand that we are being asked to suffer this because of partisan politics. That has to stop. It has to stop. So if we can minimize wastage, and how do we do that? You could adjust your program to a more realistic program, right? So you're able to minimize wastage, and then in tandem you build capacity. It means investing in your human capital. And this government isn't doing that. What this government is doing is driving people away. Look, WSG, we had a head of WSG, somebody that I worked with because I worked in the Ministry of Public Infrastructure. It was Public Works and Communications when I worked there. That's how long ago. And you had a cadre of young, brilliant engineers coming up. You check to see where all of them are today. They have about, I could count the ones who are remaining in the country, who wasn't run off because of their perceived political affiliation, or sent home because of their race, or just left for greener pastures out of pure frustration, Kelvin. So we understand that there's not a commitment to capacity building. So it's just a continued circle of failure, incompetence, hubris, and a refusal to do what is important in the best interest of this nation. So I am afraid that if we continue like this, the government will continue to rape the Natural Resources Fund, they will continue to enrich themselves, and the oil money will never get to the average Guyanese.
Never get to the average Guyanese. We're fastly approaching our time. But we had a little hiccup, a little fast start, so I'm trying to thief 10 minutes from you. MP Amanza Walton-Desir, Member of Parliament, Shadow Minister of Foreign Affairs. Your party constantly, every Tuesday, protests outside of GCOM for clean voters lists and biometrics. Talk to us about that and shine some light on where we at when it comes to getting a clean voters list or biometrics.
I see that we're at a juncture where the hypocrisy of Jack Dale is on full display. Because, of course, when he was opposition leader, he was very clarion in his call for biometrics and the urgent need for reform at GCOM. And so, in the typical manner, where you stand depends on where you sit, because now that he's sitting in government, his tune has changed. And again, Calvin, this is why I think it is important for our citizens to understand what is at stake. Because this is not just a blot on the government, it is a stain on Guyana. Because no responsible democratic country sits down and suffers a voters list that is the size of its population. That on its face is an indication of broken systems, that things are not working. And so people may say, oh, this lack of this reluctance to clean the voters list, or the downright refusal to clean the voters list, is an indication of political wisdom and so on. It's nonsense. It is a blot on the face of our country because it demonstrates a lack of commitment to true democracy. That is what it is. And if you're going to win elections, clean the list, put biometrics in the place of poll, and win the elections on issues. This is about moving our country forward. This is about releasing us from the shackles of all of the nasty politics that has held us back for so long. And it is about elevating the political conversation now. That is what we have to do as a nation. We are front and center on the world stage now. And so we have to lift everything about us. We got to lift every standard that we can lift. We have to demand more from our government. Or else people are going to look at us and say, well, I mean, y'all Guyanese people like it so.
Hmm.
You know,
Indeed.
so we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do. But the
We
list has to be cleaned. Biometrics at the place of poll is a must. And if you recall, the PPP did a dastardly thing when they did away with house-to-house registration, because no longer is there this requirement of you having to be registered at the house, etc. There's a verification process to see where you live, etc. But that could easily be manipulated, because I could know that you're coming at 10 o'clock at this house and I be there, and yes, you live there when you don't even live there. So it's fraught with issues. And the sad part about it is that you have a government that's opening the door to a whole lot and not even recognizing the implications further down the road for the national interest and for the people of Guyana.
indeed. Um, the opposition as well has championed a call for or rule out a whole list of people-centered development program, gas to show program, um, what they will give to the citizens of Guyana, NIS, and etc., etc. And it seems to bring a light of fresh air on the opposition's part, and because from one problem to the next when it comes to the PPP. Um, what are your views on how we're gonna? Well, obviously, when you guys take office, how you guys are gonna, improve the lives of people with the people-centered development program, etc., etc. What are some of your
because
views?
because it's a difference in paradigm. Understand that it's fundamentally a difference in paradigm. We put people first. We put people above concrete, right? And we put a relationship with the people of Guyana above roads and all of these things. Not to say that those things are not important, but any basic economist will tell you that your most important capital is your human capital. So we have to invest in our people. I wonder if sometimes Barry Jagdeo understands how he sounds, because he got on air and said that AP and UAFC, they want to feed people. Well, guilty as charged. We want to feed Guyanese, yes. We are fine with Guyanese being fed.
His
Because,
exact words, they want to
because
eat
a
out the money.
well-fed population is a healthy population. A
True.
well-fed population is a population that is able to develop in terms of cognition and excel academically. Yes, so if that is your biggest issue with us, then yes, we agree that we like to feed our people. Because I think Guyanese, um and you know what's sad, he means to say that disparagingly, when he doesn't realize that it exposes just the degree of ignorance in which he is dabbling. Because of course you want your people to be well fed. Of course you want your people to be able to afford nutritious meals. All right, because it is your people who have to develop their country. So I think now I notice Irfan has adopted shamelessly this people-centered approach, shamelessly, right? Has no shame. And I think they will fail, however, because Jagdio, Irfan, and the whole lot of them do not genuinely have the people of Guyana at heart.
Correct.
They're all about the money and about the riches. And I think we understand the work that it takes to build this nation. And I keep making the point in the National Assembly that everything that they're seeking to build on was put in place by the PNC. Every single thing. You point to one groundbreaking thing, one groundbreaking project that this PPPC government has been able to execute in its 28 in his 23 years prior in that iteration. Everything. NIS was put in place by Forbes Burnham. All of the major road arteries that they're building on right now was put in place by the PNC government. Guy Suko, Guy Bank, all of these initiatives were put in place by Forbes Burnham's government. So we got to give Jackie Jacket. When you look at the level and degree of corruption, look, the biggest thing that they attempted was the gas to shore. And why isn't it up and running? Because the island is sinking. And Jack Dio has the audacity to come up here and to talk about who know how to run a country and who know how to run a country, etc. Look at the quality of drinking water. Look at the quality of electricity that we are having right now. Blackout 3 and 4 times per day. So if Jack Dio wants to present himself as some economic czar, figure out how to give your people one continuous day of electricity supply without interruption. Figure out how to give your people clean potable water instead of stink, brown, nasty water. Figure out how to give your people access to a safe, efficient public transportation system. Figure out how to give to your people proper health care. If you want to be this financial czar that you want everybody to think you are, take care of the basic needs of your people first, and then maybe we can pay attention to you. But outside of that, you are simply what the Bible calls sounding brass and tinkling cymbals.
What a note to end on. MP Amanza Walton-Desir, Shadow Minister of Foreign Affairs. It's always a pleasure having you here.
It's good to see you, my brother.
It was indeed a joyful time. I guess my people are more informed and they can make informed decisions.
Absolutely.
MP, I would love to give you the last moments of the time so you can, talk to your people. Say, talk to your people. Get the last words in.
We have work to do. We have a lot of hard work to do. We are about building a nation. This is, I can't overstate how much this is not about petty partisan politics as it is about the soul of this nation. And, Kelvin, I reflect on the fact that we are not here as of our own right. We are here because our foreparents struggled. They survived some things so that we could be here today as a Guyanese people. And this is our homeland. We don't have a right to any other place as much as we have a right to this place. This is our country. And so what are we going to tell the next generation? The ball is in our court. Are we going to fumble the ball by continuing the type of politics that has not served us since independence? We can't. We have to turn a new leaf. We have to turn a new page. We have to understand that this is our shot. This is our shot, and we can't throw away our shot. And as leaders, we have to be honest with ourselves about what this moment requires of us. And we have to be able to set aside egos, and we have to be able to set aside how we feel and do what is in the best interests of the people that look to us for leadership. So this is a moment for our country. And the steps that we take next will determine the trajectory of this nation. And we have the example of nations that have gone before us, that have made the very mistakes that we are making. And I love the saying that says, wisdom is not necessarily learning from your own experience, but it is learning from the experience of others and avoiding their pitfalls. What did Farrakhan say? When you see men fail, don't laugh, learn. How are we learning from the experience of other nations that have had to deal with this sudden influx of money and made mistakes? Are we going to look humble ourselves and learn from it? Or are we in our hubris going to go ahead and make the same mistakes and squander the opportunity for this nation to be all that she can be? You know, growing up, Kelvin, we hear, oh, Guyana is a land of potential. Guyana is a land of potential. And here we are on the cusp of
The potential.
grasping this potential. But we have to be a people we got to be a people who are worthy of that potential. We got to be a people that can stand up and demonstrate, you know what? When it mattered the most, I was able to put aside partisan politics. I was able to put aside discrimination. I was able to stand up and say, look, as a citizen, this is what I want for my country. And if you are my party and if you are my leader, then you will hear me and you will hear my desire for my country. So it's an inside job. Nobody's going to come to save us. We have to save ourselves. And we got to start by understanding truly, truly, truly what it means to be Guyanese, what it means to love this nation, what it means to love our Guyanese brother and sister. And then we can begin the earnest work of healing this nation, because we have a lot of healing to do. A lot of wounds have been inflicted, and we have to heal those wounds, and we have to move on. We have to be able to move forward in a spirit of national unity. And so those are the words I'd like to close with. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being my guest today. Conversations with Poor People Governor. Thank you, viewers, for being here. The Honorable Amanza Walton-Desir, Member of Parliament, Shadow Minister of Foreign Affairs. Thank you, guys. Have a blessed and a wonderful evening.
Have a good weekend, guys.
Bye now.
Bye.